In this video, I'm going to tell you about 10, in no particular order, simple travel tips that I've learned by bitter experience over the last few years. So let's get started. My first tip is quite a simple one. When you go into a hotel room, before you go in, take a picture of the room number with your phone or other device, or the little paper thing with the room number written on it. Now, some people will say, well, why don't you just carry around that little paper thing they usually give you to put your room key in? Well, the problem is, from a security point of view, if you lose your room key with the little paper thing that says your room number on it, then your room is immediately obvious to anybody who has a nefarious intent where you are. They can just go and take that key in. But if you take the paper thing off and leave it in your room, and you've got a copy of your room number on your phone, then A, you can remember what your room number is, which can be quite useful anyway, and B, if you lose your room key, then people don't know what room it is in the hotel, so you're less likely to have your stuff stolen. The next thing I want to talk about is those old-fashioned light activation things that you have in some hotel rooms. They're going slightly out of fashion now, but they were very big, and there's still a lot of hotels that have them. So if you're not aware, maybe you're going to too classy or too poor hotels, but many hotels you have to put the room key into a little slot as you go in to turn the electricity on in the room. And this is really annoying, because what happens, I don't know what happens to a lot of other people and to me, is that you can then forget to take your room key out of the key card as you leave the room. Now, one way to solve this problem would be to just order 2 key cards and keep one with you and leave one in the slot. But a good hack that I found is, if you've got a business card, it can be your own business card or somebody else's, put that in the slot, and a lot of times that will just trigger the electricity too. So then you don't have to worry about leaving your room key in the electricity slot as you're going into the room. My next tip is with checking into hotels early. Now, this doesn't always work, but it works a lot more than you'd think. So, a lot of the time you'll see on a hotel website that it says check-in is at 4 o'clock or 3 p.m. or something like that. Now, you'd be surprised the number of times that you can go to a hotel at 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning and say, I'm checking in today, but I'm early. The number of times they will give you a room. Now, this makes perfect sense if you think about it, because there are a lot of people who leave hotel rooms early in the morning, and then the maid service will have gone around and already cleaned the room. So there's already rooms available in the morning. Generally speaking, the reason why they tell you 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. is because there's a big mass of people who leave around the middle of the day, and their rooms take longer to clean. So if you want to check in early to a hotel, I'd recommend going earlier in the morning. The worst time to try and check into a hotel early is in the 2 or 3 hours before the check-in time starts, because that's when they run out of rooms. So if you're transferring hotels in, say you're going to a conference in San Diego or somewhere, and you're going from a far out hotel to the one next to the conference venue, then go early-ish in the morning. The very worst, they'll usually allow you to, maybe for a fee, maybe not, store your luggage there. So I would always recommend trying to check in early if you're in a position where you are early into a place. Though, as I say, the hour or so before check-in time, you're very unlikely to get a room. But if you check in a long time before, you very often get a room. My next recommendation is something that you would have seen on the internet if you watch any kind of travel videos about recommendations, and that is these things. Packing cubes. This one actually isn't a cube. They really should be called like packing sub bags, but for some reason they're called packing cubes, usually because they're cube shaped in general. You order them in sets, so it's lots of little containers like this one. They usually got a side where you can see in, and then this canvas container. So rather than just packing all of your stuff into a suitcase as is, you pack it into the packing cubes, and you buy a set of packing cubes for the size of luggage you have. So you can get packing cubes for carry-on luggage, and they add up to the size of the carry-on phase. Why packing cubes? Well, it's an organisational thing, really. You can pack different kinds of items into different packing cubes, or if you're doing a multi-stage trip and you're going to different destinations and there may be different weather types, you can pack different destination stuff into each different section. And as somebody who's as chaotic and disorganised as I am usually, it makes a big difference because you're isolating your mess to just one area of your packing. If you haven't tried packing cubes, at least try them. You can get them fairly cheap on Amazon. I think these are the Amazon cheaper ones that I bought. And you do want to make sure you buy the right packing cube size for the size of case you've got. So don't buy one for big luggage if you're doing just want carry-on luggage, for example. My next recommendation is quite a simple one. Take at least one plastic bag with you. It doesn't necessarily have to be plastic, but those sort of flexible bags. There's a couple of uses where plastic bags are so useful. One is a lot of places now don't give you plastic bags, and that's fair enough because of plastic recycling concerns. So rather than you having to carry all your stuff, you can just carry it in this plastic bag you've got with you. Another use of plastic bags is to keeping dirty washing separate. Now you can use a packing cube for that, but I like to have a separate plastic bag put in because I don't like to muck up my packing cube with dirty washing. Another much more practical use that I found is if you take a plastic bag with you through airport security, then if you haven't got a jacket or somewhere else where you can put keys, wallet, passport, phone, take a plastic bag, put all of that stuff into the plastic bag, put it inside your rucksack or other carry-on item, and then you don't have this tremendous worry of losing stuff in airport security, and you don't have this, because it's so stressful, airport security, where you're going through and your stuff comes through, it's very easy to leave something in the tray. Now, you've always got to worry about laptops and iPads and anything else that you need to take out, and toiletries as well, and things like belts as well. If you have to take your belt off, you can put that in a plastic bag with your wallet, your keys, every other bit of stuff, and then you can take it and then move somewhere else and repack yourself, rather than having to do it all on the actual conveyor coming out. So that's one use where a plastic bag is really useful to have. One of my more novel pieces of advice is if you've got clothes at home that you're thinking of throwing away, maybe consider keeping them until you travel and then wearing them on the plane or when you're traveling between places and then throwing them away at the destination. Obviously this can work really well. I wouldn't necessarily suggest it if you're going to be out with other people. But let's say you've got pairs of underwear with holes in them, or you've got a t-shirt with holes under the arm or something like that, that you could wear and you could travel with, and not really anybody's going to notice or care too much about that. In that way you can save on weight because you can just wear the clothes and then throw them away at the other end, and or potentially buy replacement clothes which get you another day. So this ekes out the period of time you need to go without washing. And while washing obviously is an option, washing your clothes on a longer trip. If you've got old clothes that you can just store up and then throw away in your destination, then that makes a big difference. Now this is a lesson I've learned from bitter experience a few times. Always take at least one spare phone charging cable with you, and whatever plug or accessory is needed to charge that into the wall of wherever you are. It's happened to me a couple of times now where I've lost a charger cable, or the charging cable has failed on me, and you cannot appreciate the panic that induces, especially as often seems to happen at a time when you don't notice you've got low battery on your phone anyway. So I would always keep at least one charging cable in the hotel room and if I've got one out with me. But I always keep at least 2 charging cables. Now this is a very specific tip to the US and the UK. I don't know if other countries have this or not, but in the UK and the US there's this thing called Amazon lockers. So what you can do is you can order something and pick it up from an Amazon locker. And I've used this quite a few times in both the UK and the US. It actually works better in the UK because in the UK, if you've got Amazon Prime, you can have 1-day delivery. So let's say you need to have some bulky item at your destination. Rather than carrying it with you, and this is especially true, I've used this for books, I will order books or whatever the big item is to be delivered to an Amazon locker in the city that I'm going to, and I will go to the Amazon locker and pick it up. Obviously you can do this with hotels as well and have stuff delivered to a hotel. The problem with a hotel is often they will either charge you or they seem to have this great ability of losing things when you deliver them to hotels. So an Amazon locker is a lot easier in a way to do. And the way it works is that on the delivery page on Amazon, you select an Amazon locker as your delivery location, and then you can just order stuff and pick it up. And I've done that with things like charging cables actually. And you can also do it with things like underwear or other things that you might have run out of or broken or something's gone wrong with them. Just order it on Amazon and pick it up with an Amazon locker. Now obviously this does depend on you being in a city location that's got an Amazon locker nearby. This won't work in the countryside. This won't work in rural Oklahoma or something like that. But let's say you're in Seattle and you need something, order it on Amazon and pick it up from an Amazon locker 2 days later. So Amazon lockers are tremendously useful as a traveller. And you can also usually get a 30-day free trial of Amazon Prime in whatever country you are. You can't do that too often, but that's especially useful, so you actually will get it in 2 days or a day depending on the location. This is one that I never seem to learn. I just recently booked somewhere and then found the same issue. But anyway, if you're going to a location for a few days and you've got some flexibility as to when you go there. So for example, with me, I visit lots of states, and sometimes I could visit one state on a Tuesday and Wednesday, and sometimes on Saturday, Sunday. It really makes sense to check when the attractions in that location are open, because some places you'll find all the museums shut on a Monday or Tuesday. Other places, all the museums shut on a Saturday and Sunday. And way too often I've discovered I go to a place and everywhere's shut because I picked the wrong time of the week to go there. Sometimes that's why the hotels and things are cheap, so that's obviously something to be factored in. But do your research about a destination and find out if it's somewhere where the best museum shuts on a Tuesday and you happen to go on the Tuesday. It's not a nice experience. So be very mindful when you're visiting a place of the opening hours of all the major attractions in it. And try to book your trips so that they coincide with when the places are open. Because there's nothing more frustrating than to be in a place for 2 days and both those days the major museum or attraction is shut. So check all the attractions you want to visit in the location are actually open when you were going there. May sound obvious, but I've fallen foul of this a few times. My last tip is to keep checklists of things to pack. I keep these in a piece of online software called Trello, which is primarily designed for project management, but has this feature of having cards, and you can put in checklists in those cards. So you can always use them like a template, and that's the way that I use Trello. So I will have a checklist template for domestic trips, one for international trips. I should probably add in repacking in each location, because there is a certain amount of stuff that you need to remember to pack with you every time you move between locations as well. But this will save you an enormous amount of time just forgetting things. So create some, you don't have to use Trello, you can use any software that lets you have reusable lists of checklists of items. You can even just write a piece of paper and your list down if you want and print that off and tick them off. But having lists really does help in terms of making sure you have everything before you go away. If you like this video, then maybe subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Click the little like button, do all the other things, and I'm sure I'm going to find a video here that you can watch that will be exciting. I haven't created it yet, but when I do, it will appear there. So thanks so much for watching this video.